Hey folks, Robbie Payne here again with a head-to-head comparison between the HP Chromebook 11 and the HP Chromebook 14. Now, you're going to see these guys side by side a lot in the coming weeks and months, obviously because they're new Chromebooks. They're both made by HP, and they kind of both represent, in different ways, some of the best of what's going on in the Chromebook arena right now. Now, again, anytime I say anything about this being the best or that being the best, keep in mind I'm not including the Chromebook Pixel in this. Most people that are looking at Chromebooks are not looking at spending between $1,300 and $1,500 on a device. They're probably going to go buy a MacBook Pro for that. And I'm not knocking the Pixel. I've never even touched one. I'd love to get my hands on one and talk about it as well. But for most people, you know, when they're considering a Chromebook, they're considering either a second computer or they're considering something that's lightweight and the family can use, and it can be that kind of thing for them. For me personally, some of the reasons that I look at Chromebooks, I want something I can use as a mobile companion when I'm out of the house working, and so. Chrome OS didn't used to be that. It is that now, and I think at some point in time could probably be a PC replacement as time goes by. So it's exciting to see devices out like this. At the end of this, I'll tell you which one is going to be kind of my choice for right now, and why I've chosen that way. But both of them present some really interesting new features that come in Chromebooks that are exciting to see in the development process of Chrome OS. So all that being said, let's look at a few things. Most of these things are covered in the review, and I'll pop those up on the screen so you can link out to either one of those guys per each device, and so there's a good thorough review for both of them already posted. But in this, I want to specifically just kind of compare head to head on a couple things. And so the first thing that is so noticeable, so right out front, and I don't know if you can notice it, but just looking at it right now in my eyes, it's so different, and just a complete gap in between these guys is the screen on both of them. The panel on the HP 11 is gorgeous, IPS. You know, I can move back and forth and up and down and really not lose too much. It looks the same from all these different angles. On the HP, it's a TN panel, so you get too far off axis in any way, you start getting polarization, so blacks start turning white and vice versa. And left and right's not as bad as up and down, but either way, it's a TN panel. That same resolution on the 2 obviously tightens up on the 11.6. It looks a lot crisper. It gets a little pixelated up close on the HP. So hands down, the screen display win goes to the Chromebook 11. There's just no comparison, honestly. I don't know if that comes across in a video, but very shortly you'll be able to get into the store, probably look at both of these guys side by side, and you'll see how just evidently plain it is. I tried to pick a background that had a lot of good blacks in it, so you could see those deep blacks of the IPS display versus the really kind of soft colors on the HP. Now, when you're looking at the HP by itself, I will say this, it doesn't bother you. And when you put it up next to something like this, then all of a sudden it becomes glaringly obvious that it's pretty far off in color replication and in contrast ratios. Up top, the video cameras on both, the HP wins, or the 14-inch HP wins on that one. It is a 720p, and it is noticeably different. Looks better, and as Google Hangouts move to at least a 720p HD format, that'll come in pretty handy, and it does look better. Build quality wise, I want to say that's a tie, honestly, between the two guys. Obviously different design cues between them. The 11-inch has a cleaner, more modern, really unique look, but I can't say that the HP 14 isn't unique as well. When it's opened up, especially if you had the white one and this was just white and gray, it probably wouldn't, you know, somebody looking at it in passing is probably not going to think, wow, that's something unique. They're not really going to think that. But closed up, you know, that finish, that rubberized finish, and these kind of really different colors that HP picked, I think will go a long way in kind of differentiating it. People seeing it go, hey, what is that? And if you went with the white one, I'm sure it wouldn't turn as many heads. I particularly would like to have the white one. I said that in the review, but I think this and the Coral Peach one will probably turn some heads just based on that, because the whole thing, top and bottom, is all that color. Another thing that will turn heads on this guy when you're out in public is that awesome little LED bar. And so you can see that. In here it's not crazy bright. I got quite a few lights on to make sure this video doesn't look grainy. But it's a really neat little thing. I've gotten some comments already on it, and people passing by, or friends sitting across the table going, oh man, that's neat. That's a neat touch. And even my 3-year-old daughter looked at it and said, ooh, I like the colors. I want to touch them. And so it's a neat thing. I hope the specifically kind of Google branded Chromebooks always continue to have that, because it's a neat little touch. I like that. Other hardware differences: speakers are pretty much a tie as far as clarity, volume, all that kind of stuff. You know, the Chromebook 11 has that neat feature where the speakers are embedded here in the keyboard and the sound kind of rises up out of it, which is pretty neat. But really not a deal breaker. I wouldn't make a decision on a device based on that. Both speakers are really good on both. Trackpad, I would have to give the advantage to the HP 14. It is a little larger. It doesn't look, you know, when you see it by itself, it seems like it might be a little small, but the device is huge. I mean, you can easily fit all 5 fingers here, and you can on this one as well. This one just looks bigger in comparison to the rest of the device. Both of them are fine. They're serviceable trackpads. This one just feels a bit smoother and stays a bit smoother as your hands become less and less clean since the last time you washed them. So when you wash them, you get the oil off, and a lot of things become smooth. But you know, once they get oily again, you know, things tend to stick a little bit, and this one does better. I've found day to day, this one can get a little tacky and start sticking a bit. Like I said, build quality wise, both devices feel nice and stable and solid. You know, all matte finish, a lot of glossy plastic, but it's white, so it doesn't show a lot of fingerprints. So, you know, you get these trade-offs, and these things aren't really that big of a deal. I know people want to know them. You know, you get the nice micro USB charger here, so you can charge other stuff with it, and it's smaller and all that kind of stuff. But over here, you get the function of full SD card slot, full HDMI slot, whereas you need to use a slim port for the 11. You get USB 3.0 if that's a big deal to you over here. You get Kensington lock over here. And for me, the biggest differentiator is that HDMI port's pretty nice. That if you needed it in a pinch, you needed to present something or something like that, you've got it. HDMI is all over the place. It's no big deal now. If you don't carry your slim port adapter with you, you're pretty much out of luck over here, which kind of stinks. But with the evolution of Chromecast, and people really moving, I mean, I specifically pretty much am cloud-based completely now. So, you know, USB ports and SD card slots, I really don't barely ever touch them on a Chromebook. But, you know, different people do different things. And I think I mentioned in the review, I've got Linux installed on both. Let me see if I've already got this guy over. I think I've rebooted him, but I've got Linux set up on both of them, and both of them run Linux fine. No issues on that, and you know, getting into your terminals, and there's plenty of stuff online you can go to find about that. If I get enough comments about, hey, show me how to install Linux and get it running, and because there's a couple little weird things with the touchpad. This one, touchpad works fine in Linux, no problem. This one had some wonky stuff where you had to use your finger flat on it. Kind of freaked me out for a minute because I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to fix it. I did find the fixes online, a couple different places, and to piece some stuff together, but it's fixable. It works. I can show you. If you can see the mouse moving just fine. No problems whatsoever. So, and it is nice to be able to jump into Linux literally that fast. That's a pretty cool thing, and it's a great drop back until Chrome OS gets to where it needs to be. I'm not going to go off on a tangent on that again. So hardware-wise, we're kind of a stalemate here. You know, you lose some things over here, and you gain some things over here, and you lose some things here and gain some things, and so it kind of just goes back and forth on the exterior hardware of the two as to what matters to you most. If a bright, accurate display is the most important thing, maybe a Chromebook may not be for you. But if you're set on a Chromebook and you want the best display, no problem going over here. And I'll say the keyboard, I give a slight advantage to this one, and I don't know why. Both keyboards are great. Both have great travel. No missed strokes, none of that stuff. They're both quiet, spaced well. They just both work well. Love them both. I think part of it is the nice rounded material here feels better on my palms over here, even though there's less space over here. But using the trackpad, you end up with your hand on this a lot, and so this is more comfortable. I'm going to say that. For whatever reason, I just like this keyboard better. I like the way it feels, I like the way it types, all that kind of stuff. And the other advantage to being an 11-inch display or an 11-inch device is that this one felt way more natural, just popping in my lap, sitting in front of a television. No big deal. Almost tablet-like in that sense. The downside is so many websites struggle on this thing that I found myself wishing I would have grabbed this instead, but thinking, I don't want to grab the 4-pound beast. I'll leave it alone. And so I just grabbed my Nexus 7 instead, which is probably best anyway. That kind of web browsing stuff is usually best left to tablets. Sorry, I had to cut away there. I heard my daughter coming and wasn't sure what she was going to come after. So anyway, what I was saying, or what I was getting ready to get into, the biggest difference in the two devices really comes down to internal hardware. Whereas over here we have the ARM processor, Exynos Dual 5250, 1.7 gigahertz with 2 gigs of RAM. Over here we get the Haswell class. It's not technically labeled Haswell because it does not have turbo or hyperthreading, but a Haswell class Celeron, so the latest version of the Celeron processor over here. And so with 4 gigs of RAM, I'm sorry. And so even though we've always seen Intel processors beat ARM processors on Chromebooks thus far, even though that has been the case, usually the Intel processors really stink it up when it comes to battery life. Well, here's where the Haswell class processor comes in and fixes that particular problem, and battery life is great on this. I talked about it in the review. You're looking at 8 to 9 hours just as it's billed, and same thing over here, 5 to 6 hours just as it's also billed. But you would expect much higher battery life over here on an ARM processor, and actually you're getting much better battery here. And so now you're getting better processing power, better ability to handle multiple tasks, better ability to load every web page you can throw at it, plus stellar battery life. Over here, not as good a battery life, and then it chokes on lots of different things. And so this is really the primary difference in the two. There's all these aesthetic things we've talked about already, and differences in ports and things like that, and those things matter. I'm not saying that they don't, but day-to-day usage, whenever you get into using a device day after day after day after day after day, performance is really going to matter depending on what you do. And so if you load up Facebook and send an email once a day from it and that's all you do with it, I would say the Chromebook 11 is going to handle everything you need to do. But you're going to find a lot of websites that it really struggles on. And my wife is not definitely not a tech person. She'll stick with the same devices for long periods of time, usually until I can talk her into buying something else. And so for her, even, she gets a little frustrated with her Samsung Series 3 Chromebook from time to time on specific sites, and she'll show me something. Why isn't this running? I'm like, well, hun, here's the deal, and here's the limitations of the Chromebook. And so she's still not switching up. It hasn't frustrated her that much, and she uses it for lightweight stuff like that: Facebook, Amazon, eBay, email, those kind of things, keeping it pretty simple. If those things are your things, watching some YouTube videos, using a Chromecast, not casting a tab, but just using a Chromecast to, shoot a YouTube video and tell it to run. I mean, those kind of things, it handles those things just fine. But you get into gaming, you get into some of the heavier apps and that kind of thing, and you really start to see the Samsung, or Samsung as well, but the HP Chromebook 11 really start to bog down and not perform nearly as well. So that's where the real big difference is in between them. And I do want to give you a quick, since we talked about the external stuff and I could show it to you, I want to also show you the software side of things. I want to turn the brightness down so we're not overloading the camera here. Okay, so Twitter, notoriously terrible on Chromebooks. On the HP, not really an issue. Scrolls right along, no problem. I'm going to come over here, and we'll 2-finger scroll, and it goes. So what do we get, 3 seconds there? And then it'll start responding again, but wait for it. There it goes. Wait for it. There it goes. That's pretty bad. That's almost unusable. As a matter of fact, when I was using the Samsung Chromebook Series 3, I just avoided Twitter. It's that annoying. We'll go to The Verge and we'll run the video that's just loaded up on the home page and scroll the page, because The Verge is just heavy. There's a lot of stuff going on. And you see, quick swipes, scrolls the screen, no problem. We're going to stop this video and come over here. We're going to do the same thing. Get the video playing and scroll, and you see just the choppiness going on here. Things are just jumping. I'm not even sure where I'm at here. Okay, there I am. And then, for those of you who looked at it and say, well, I don't have to have the video running. Well, it's still not good without video running. You still get a whole page jumps without, in one frame. So, you can see some serious frame rate drag. Now, granted, this is, we're talking about we're tough sites here. And Google Plus, again, notoriously bad on Chromebooks. No issue on the HP, or on the HP 14, I should say. Again, we see kind of the slow lag. Not nearly as bad as Twitter, not at all, but very bad frame rates. If we go to pull up my profile, see, it kind of chokes through this stuff a little bit. And still not able to scroll yet, and then come over there. Whereas if we come over here, we'll load up the profile, see it swipe in real fast, swoop away real fast, load up real fast, and we're off and running, no problems, no issues. So it's pretty impossible to put these guys side by side and say, hey, the performance isn't that bad on this, or you're really not gaining too much with the Intel processor. It's pretty substantial and it's pretty different. There's just no way around it. I'm going to show you a couple games real quick. Go on. One of them is Cracking Sands. Cracking Sands. A little race car game. And we'll turn our brightness back up here. I'm just going to do a single race, time trial on each. And it may not be coming off on the video, but even just the transitions in and out of screens and stuff. Let me get the screen brightness up here again. Okay, thank you. And it's not going to control screen brightness. So you can see, if you can see it on the video, nice smooth frame rates, no drops. Textures look good for what's there. And the controls are responsive. So very cool there. We come over here, we'll run the same thing. And the game runs, but it's pretty quick to tell. Like, the controls are real slow to react to my fingers, so you almost have to turn before you get to places. And frame rates are pretty low, probably in the teens, I would guess. Maybe upper teens, low 20s. So not great, but playable. Okay. Now we're going to go to a popular game. Let me get the brightness up now. Here. Cut the Rope. Now we'll see on this one over here, all the pre-level transitions are no problem. Everything's smooth, everything works really well. But you actually get into the game and you'll see frames just drop all over the place. And that was actually, well, it's already giving me the error. It's too slow, a little too slow. Sad because your computer's slow. But like levels like this, you can see this thing is running in slow motion. So we'll come over here and we'll look at that same level. And this is what the animation should look like. You can see kind of the nice wavy ropes and stuff like that. And so this is how it should look, and this is how it shouldn't. And so you see, even we're not talking about hardcore 3D games here. We're talking about pretty straightforward two-dimensional gaming, and it really struggles. So if gaming's your thing, really the HP 11 is just not going to cut it. If there are some sites you frequent that are heavy, or if you're a Twitter hound and you just got to be on Twitter all the time, again, the HP 11 right now is just going to frustrate you to no end. And so when it comes down to it, user experience, when I'm using it on a regular basis, the HP 14. Okay, I'll be right back. Sorry guys for another break there. Daughter needed a potty break, so it's just part and parcel of filming stuff at home. Anyway, to kind of wrap everything up, we've talked about hardware differences. We talked about some internal differences. Obviously, there are no software differences. The software is the exact same on both of them. But from an overall user experience, for me, because I use the Chromebook for maybe more than what even Google recommends that you use it for, I'm just going to push it a little more than some people, but probably not near as much as a lot of people are going to. So I kind of find myself in the middle, probably between not needing a whole lot and needing and pushing the machine to its extreme fullest point. And I find from a user experience point of view that the HP 14 just meets those needs. Now, I really don't like the panel on it. I don't hate it. I really don't. And it's not that it's unusable or terrible or so bad that I can't stand looking at it. It's just when it's next to this thing, I love the way this looks. This thing just draws my eyes to it. And the overall design, everything about the outside of this Chromebook, I want to love it. I want it to be my Chromebook. I want that to be my favorite. But when it comes down to it, performance is it's too far apart. If it were closer, if it were only on a couple things here and there that this thing lagged on, it wouldn't bother me as bad. But it's a lot of stuff. I mean, I just showed you a handful of things, but I couldn't remember all the websites I went to that it choked on and just couldn't make it through. And so that's just really unfortunate. Now, 6 months down the road, Chrome OS may be optimized in such a way where there isn't nearly the performance gap. And that would be awesome if that's the case. That would be a really great thing. But for right now, where we are right now in the middle of October, as these guys are both new, I have to give the overall victory to the HP Chromebook 14. Now, keep in mind, the Acer C720 is coming out that has a form factor very similar to this, weight, and from only the couple videos I've seen, there's not much out there. It seems to be a good firm build and a pretty decent TN panel. It's not an IPS display, but pretty decent. And the last Acer Chromebook wasn't horrible, probably on the same level as the panel on this. But it's going to have the internals that match this, or you can get it that way. I know the 250 model will probably not have 2 gigs of RAM, but you'll probably be able to bump it up at the $280 to $300 mark and get 4 gigs of RAM and the same Intel processor. And so that's going to throw an interesting mix, especially for me, because I love the internals of this one. And I don't hate any of the external stuff, I really don't. But I love the externals of this one. So, but for right now, I would have to give the win to the HP Chromebook 14. Thanks for watching.